Wall Street heavyweights took us beyond the headlines. Here's what they think everyone needs to understand about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's proposed 70% marginal tax on income above $10 million. And everybody's talking about AOC's proposed 70% marginal tax rate. What do you think are the economic implications of that?
Well, look, it's ultimately going to get fought. The marginal rate has to go to start at 253, 350,000, whatever the sloganeering is. In order to get any money out of the U.S. population, the marginal rate always ends up being debated right around $250,000, $300,000. So, look, if you impose a 70% tax rate on that type of wage earner, you're going to crush the economy.
But at $10 million?
There's no money there. Maybe we should do 99% at 10 million. I don't know. There's no money. There's no policy there. So it's going to be decided at the 250 to 350 rate. That'll be the only decision will be where in that band you put extremely high marginal rates, because that's where the money is. And we might as well talk about that early.
And there's been a lot of debate about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's proposed 70% tax on all income above $10 million.
Right.
What do you think are the economic implications of something like that?
Well, we've lived in these high tax regimes before. Go back into the 1930s, even the 1960s, we had very high marginal tax rates. When we cut tax rates in the 1980s, we had a huge productivity boom. And the reason for that is that people who were wealthy spent a lot of time sheltering their income, and they drove investment into marginally less productive assets than they would if they just had free flexibility to put the money where they wanted to. So the frightening thing about high marginal tax rates is that it leads us into a low productivity economy. And we have a lot of headwinds already in this country. For instance, the growth in the working age population is declining dramatically. If you layer in on top of that high marginal tax rates, you could actually build an economy that has zero growth potential. And so I think policymakers have to be very careful when looking at putting high marginal tax rates on the rich. And when you look at the revenue attached to it, if the Washington Post is right, even let's assume that nobody makes a portfolio adjustment and they pay their marginal taxes, it's about $70 billion a year. In an economy that's running $1 trillion deficit, I think we should probably have lower hanging fruit to find ways to address the real issues that are being brought up by some people in Washington, like AOC or Bernie Sanders. There are real issues to be addressed, but I think that we need to get more private sector incentive to address the issues rather than to necessarily weigh the private sector down with high taxation.
Bob, there's suddenly a lot of talk about a 70% marginal tax rate on incomes of 10 million or more in the United States. A couple of very smart people here have called that a disaster and scary. Is that something we should actually be worried about?
Well, I don't think it would be good, but mostly I don't think it would solve any problems. The reason that that's emerging as a topic is because of populism, income inequality, and though the populism and income inequality are really rooted in much deeper issues that tax rate, a 70% tax rate is not going to address. You really need to have jobs and incomes in the parts of the country that have been gutted by one force or another. And so largely the forces of populism are much more powerful. They're not going to be really addressed by that kind of a shift in taxes. I think the one thing that it would do is it'd help with the deficit.